A blunt warning this Tuesday night about what's feared is the worst storm in a century.
If you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
That's Tampa's mayor on CNN as Hurricane Milton races towards Florida, the thousands on the move, and how patients in one hospital will be forced to stay put. The Israeli Prime Minister's plea, what he's urging the people of Lebanon to do. Attention, Taylor Swift fans. Ticketmaster's new rules to prevent scammers from having a marvelous time ruining everything. And saying goodbye with a living funeral.
I don't want to stay here and be trapped.
The Nova Scotia woman dying on her own terms.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
This is not a flight for the faint-hearted. Hurricane hunters with the American National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration flew straight into Hurricane Milton today. Their aircraft buffeted by 230-kilometer-an-hour winds as they collected data on the powerful storm that's heading for Tampa, Florida. Hurricane Milton has gained strength and is a Category 5. That's the highest category. And people are on the move. More than 3 million people live in the Tampa Bay area, including many Canadians who own or rent property there. Everyone has been warned to get out now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. Hurricane Milton is now expected to hit the region tomorrow night.
Apprehensive, really anxious. We have 2 young kids. It's scary.
The U.S. National Hurricane Center warns not just of strong winds, but of storm surges between 4 and 5 meters. This will, according to Florida officials, be the ocean coming into people's living rooms. Jackson Proskow begins our coverage tonight.
With time quickly running out, millions across Florida face a dire choice. Stay in Milton's path or flee this once-in-a-generation storm.
I've ridden out all the storms. This would be the first one I'm leaving for.
Because of the storm surge, they say it's going to be biblical.
Evacuation orders span the Gulf Coast. Gasoline is quickly becoming a precious commodity. Airports that haven't already closed soon will. All the while, warnings from public officials grow more dire.
If you're going to call the police and expect the police to come and save you, you better evacuate because we're not going to be able to.
It seems people are heeding the warnings. Canadians Cindy Edwards and Colin Trethewey left their home in Tampa for Orlando.
We are not kidding ourselves. We know this is going to be dangerous. That's why we moved inland. We wanted to get as far away from the storm as possible.
In Tampa, stadiums are being prepped as storm shelters for thousands of evacuees. But at the city's only level 1 trauma hospital on a vulnerable island, there are patients too sick to leave. They will ride out the storm behind a temporary flood barrier.
If we had a 12-foot surge, does that change anything on how this performs? It shouldn't, but we don't know that yet.
The area is still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Mountains of debris litter the streets. There's a frantic rush to remove it before it gets swept up in the predicted 3 to 4 meters of storm surge.
Everything's projectile out here right now because everybody's house is on the front yard.
Fearing widespread destruction, power crews from as far away as Nova Scotia are already making their way south. Just like the residents of hurricane-weary Florida, all they can do is wait for Milton to pass, knowing this will be a storm of historic proportions. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
One thing that's frightening about this storm is how quickly it intensified. It's fueled in part by water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico that have reached record levels this year. Hotter water and air provide greater energy to hurricanes, supercharging them. Meteorologist Anthony Farnell is tracking this storm for us. Anthony.
Donna, Milton has once again been intensifying, now regaining that Category 5 strength. And as far as satellite presentations go, this is just a classic Category 5 signature, a very warm, clear eye surrounded by deep, cold cloud tops, and that's where the strongest winds are. Our visible satellite imagery shows this stadium effect that only occurs in the most intense hurricanes, and it is still moving over some very warm water for the next 12 hours or so that extend to great depths. After that, some weakening, but the wind field expands out. And what that means, well, it means there's a lot of water on the move. And with a landfall perpendicular to the coastline, we're going to see a 10 to 15 foot storm surge south of the center. And that is the concern. Tampa may be spared the worst, but other areas like Sarasota down to Naples won't be. And there's that large wind field traveling across the entire state of Florida. Landfall expected late on Wednesday night. Donna?
All right, Anthony Farnell, thank you. To the Middle East, there are reports of a deadly explosion in the Syrian capital, Damascus. Syrian state media says Israel fired missiles at a building near the Iranian embassy, killing 7 people, including women and children. It says at least 11 others were wounded. Israel's military has not confirmed its involvement. The Israeli prime minister did claim today that Israeli forces killed the potential successor to Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. And tonight, its military ordered residents in 2 Beirut suburbs to leave their homes. Redmond Shannon reports.
Planting the Israeli flag on Lebanese soil. Part of what Israel is calling its limited ground operation to target Hezbollah. On Tuesday, Israel said a 4th division of troops entered Lebanon as part of that. An invasion accompanied by yet more airstrikes on Beirut and on other parts of the country. 137 strikes have killed 36 people in the past day, according to Lebanese authorities.
We are seeing the same patterns that we saw in Gaza, the same means and methods of warfare that have been used. And as a result, we're seeing civilians pay the ultimate price.
Despite the death toll at the hands of Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu asked Lebanese people for their help in his mission.
Do you remember when your country was called the Pearl of the Middle East? I say to you, the people of Lebanon, free your country from Hezbollah so that this war can end.
Netanyahu said the presumed successor to killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah has now also been assassinated. The surviving deputy leader Naim Qassem insists Hezbollah remains strong despite the strikes against its leadership and its members. Even as Hezbollah fires rockets into Israel, Qassem talked of his desire for a ceasefire, but for the first time without explicitly making it conditional on a Gaza truce.
I think there is a lot of pressure internally by the Lebanese leadership and people. They look down at Gaza. It's been reduced to rubble, and they're saying, no, not here, not Lebanon, not us.
And now tensions in the region only increased by reports of a deadly airstrike on the Syrian capital, Damascus. In recent years, Israel has regularly struck targets linked to Iran inside Syria. Donna?
Redmond Shannon in London. Thanks, Redmond. Gaza is still under siege by Israel. Late last night, at least 30 people, including 6 children, were killed by Israeli strikes, hitting homes in a refugee camp in central Gaza and in northern Gaza. Israel says it's targeting Hamas fighters in the Jabalia refugee camp. The IDF has again ordered displaced civilians out of the area. Palestinian officials say no water, food, or medical supplies are being allowed in, and ambulance crews are unable to reach the dead and injured. Israel does not allow journalists into Gaza, so the images that emerge are from local journalists who risk their lives doing their jobs. One of them, photojournalist Samar Abu Alouf, has been awarded the 2024 International Press Freedom Award by Canadian Journalists for Free Expression. Her work has captivated the world, revealing the harsh realities of war and displacement in Gaza, along with moments of resilience. Samara said her job isn't to hide, it's to photograph, even when everyone around you is screaming and missiles are dropping. The FBI has arrested an Afghan man who they say was inspired by the so-called Islamic State and was plotting an election day attack targeting large crowds in the U.S. After his arrest, police say the 27-year-old from Oklahoma City told them he and a juvenile expected to die as martyrs. They say he entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa in 2021 and had taken steps in recent weeks to order AK-47s, liquidate his assets, and buy one-way tickets for his wife and child to travel home to Afghanistan. The head of Britain's domestic spy agency, MI5, has given a rare glimpse into the threat Western nations are facing. In a public speech, Ken McCollum said the UK is facing the most complex and interconnected threat ever seen from Russia, Iran, and Islamist groups.
Today's Islamic State is not the force it was a decade ago. But after a few years of being pinned well back, they've resumed efforts to export terrorism.
Here's some of what he revealed. 43 late-stage plots to commit mass murder in the UK have been foiled since 2017, involving firearms and explosives. Most involved Islamic extremism, followed by right-wing terrorism. In the last year, the number of investigations into state-backed assassination and sabotage plots has increased by 48%. MI5 and police responded to 20 Iran-backed plots since 2022, which presented potentially lethal threats to British citizens and UK residents. Russia's intelligence agency has been on a mission to generate sustained mayhem on British and European streets. More than 750 Russian diplomats have been expelled from Europe since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and a great majority of them were spies. Quebec's chief coroner ordered a public inquiry into a fire last week that killed a mother and daughter from France. A 43-year-old woman and her 7-year-old daughter died in that blaze, which engulfed this century-old building in Old Montreal on Friday. A third person remains in critical condition. The building belongs to the owner of another heritage building, which burned down in March of last year. 7 people died there, and that fire is the subject of a separate inquiry. Quebec's coroner's office announced the latest inquiry after a request by the province's public security minister and says both inquiries may be combined. The Nobel Prize in Physics goes to a Canadian. Coming up, the contributions that earned Geoffrey Hinton the nickname the Godfather of AI. A Canadian who helped lay the foundation for artificial intelligence and later warned of its dangers has won the most coveted prize in science. Geoffrey Hinton, Professor Emeritus at the University of Toronto, shares the Nobel Prize in Physics with John Hopfield of Princeton University. Eric Sorensen explains their pioneering work, which began in the 1980s and is now exploding across almost every aspect of our lives.
Geoffrey Hinton, University of Toronto, Canada.
The Nobel Award for Physics to Geoffrey Hinton and American John Hopfield really confirm Hinton's unofficial title, the Godfather of Artificial Intelligence.
For foundational discoveries and inventions that enable machine learning with artificial neural networks.
Hinton thought it was a joke when he first got the call, till he heard a Swedish accent.
How do you feel right now?
I'm flabbergasted. I had no idea this would happen.
What's happened is that computing, from internet searches to digital assistants like chatbots, are increasingly achieving what human thinking cannot keep up with.
It will be comparable with the Industrial Revolution, but instead of exceeding people in physical strength, it's going to exceed people in intellectual ability.
Hinton's work was based on the idea that computers can take in information, analyzing not just data, but patterns in the data. The more data, the clearer the patterns can become. And sharing with more computers, the more those patterns can be understood and faster, as Hinton explained in this University of Toronto video.
And that means that you could make 10,000 copies of the same knowledge, and whenever one copy learns something, it can communicate it very efficiently to all the other copies.
His epiphany, he said, was realizing that computer networks could exceed human neural networks.
I suddenly realized that maybe the computer models we have now are actually better than the brain.
But Hinton also saw potential harms. He left his job as a researcher at Google so he could be free to speak out about computers gaining more influence with fake information controlled by bad actors.
These superintelligences may be here quite soon, and I'm just sounding the alarm so that people listen to the experts who've been thinking for a long time about how we might stop them taking control.
Hinton saw artificial intelligence coming, saw what good it could do, and almost as quickly what could go wrong. Just like computing, it's all happening quickly. It may be that AI will be needed to ensure that AI is used for good purposes. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Swifties take note ahead. The new rules for ticket holders to help stop scammers. If you know young people in your life who are always on TikTok, you'll want to hear this. The social media platform is facing new lawsuits filed by more than a dozen American states. They accuse TikTok of harming the mental health of young people through design features like push notifications that are deliberately intended to be addictive and lead to endless scrolling. At the heart of each case is the platform's algorithm. It populates the app's main feed with content tailored to people's interests and can lead to excessive use. The suit accuses TikTok of knowing and profiting from these behaviors, which it says could result in profound psychological and physiological harms, such as anxiety and depression. TikTok says it strongly disagrees with the claims and is committed to protecting its young users. The frontman of the Canadian band Sum 41, Derek Whibley, says he was groomed and sexually abused by the band's former manager, Greg Norrie. Whibley made the allegation in a new memoir titled Walking Disaster: My Life Through Heaven and Hell. He says he was abused by Norrie when he was a teenager and Norrie was in his 30s. Whibley claims he was kissed without consent and that Norrie instigated sexual encounters. Norrie, the co-frontman of another Canadian band, Treble Charger, says those allegations are false and he has retained a defamation lawyer. There's less than a fortnight before Taylor Swift begins the final leg of her historic Eras tour. And ahead of her upcoming Canadian concerts, Ticketmaster is enforcing new rules around transferring tickets after a surge in reported scams involving tickets being transferred suddenly without authorization. Sean O'Shea reports on the shady side of unprecedented demand.
She's the hottest ticket in just about any town. Taylor Swift in concert delights her fans, but brings out the worst from scammers.
It has been exponentially worse when it's come to Taylor Swift tickets.
For months, fraudsters have been taking advantage of unprecedented ticket demand for Taylor Swift's Eras tour.
People want these tickets, and so because of that, it's really easy to fall into the ticket scams.
Buying concert tickets is kind of really scary.
Because so many consumers in recent months have paid hundreds of dollars for tickets that may have been fake. A year ago, Ina Feldman gave a fake seller $1,400 to buy tickets for next month's Toronto concert.
Taylor Swift, so much pressure with the teenagers wanting to attend this event.
At the root of many of these scams, hackers stealing legitimate tickets from Ticketmaster accounts. Jeremy Brady had that happen to him.
I saw an email from Ticketmaster saying I had accessed my account from Corpus Christi, Texas, which obviously was strange.
Ticketmaster now says in response to tickets being stolen, they won't allow ticket transfers between accounts until 72 hours before the actual concert. An apparent attempt to stop the scams. But late in the game, says one technology watcher.
Even though they had a security breach recently, it seems like they just haven't learned their lesson.
I feel like Ticketmaster needs to work on their security for that.
I think what's happening with Ticketmaster is absolutely ridiculous.
If you're holding Taylor Swift tickets in your Ticketmaster account, this warning.
Having multi-factor authentication, not recycling usernames and passwords, that is the easiest way to prevent yourself from being victimized by these hackers.
And if you're trying to buy, this advice from someone who was duped.
Make sure you get that person on the telephone, because if they don't want to take your phone call, they probably aren't legit.
Sean O'Shea, Global News, Toronto.
This coach is making history tonight as the NHL's first full-time female assistant coach. Jessica Campbell is behind the bench for the Seattle Kraken's season opener against the St. Louis Blues. Campbell played for Cornell University and in the Canadian Women's Hockey League before moving into coaching. Forgetting the pain, focusing on celebrating her life. Next, a Nova Scotia woman holds a living funeral. Saying goodbye to loved ones and facing your own mortality is not something we talk openly about very much. A Nova Scotia woman is taking a different approach. She has held her own living funeral, allowing people to celebrate her life while she's still around. She used to be a theater performer, and as Heidi Petracek reports, she is going out on her own terms, bold and defying convention.
At first, I didn't really think I wanted a funeral at all.
April Hubbard has lived life beyond her wheelchair, always defying expectation, whether on a trapeze or water skiing. So when the 39-year-old was approved for medically assisted death, she decided to hold a living funeral beforehand.
I couldn't get married. I could never have children. So my funeral was really the one big time in my life that I could bring everybody together.
And not just any celebration of life.
I'd say we have to do it more often, but...
This is not a cry all over the place funeral.
Done variety show style, friends performed special tributes on stage as the audience cheered.
This is like a reimagining of what a funeral and a celebration of life can be.
And the response of everyone coming out to show their love and support for her is a reflection of the love and support she has shown for them.
Hubbard's road has been difficult. Her spinal cord is attached to the surrounding tissue, damaging nerves in what's called tethered cord syndrome. She says treatment options have run out, her pain intensifying, organs failing. She knows medically assisted death, while legal, can be controversial, and sees this as a chance to spark more open conversations. This choice, she says, right for her.
I don't want to stay here and be trapped and not be able to have that quality of life that kept me going for so many years and made me feel like I was living.
You are not alone.
For her living funeral, Hubbard drew what strength she has left
You are not alone.
to take to the trapeze in a final performance before her last act.
And I will find the peace once I set my final exit date. And this was what my life was supposed to be.
Saying goodbye the same way she has lived, on her own terms. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada are these fishing stages in Champneys West on Trinity Bight, Newfoundland and Labrador. We'd love to see Your Canada. Please email it to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.